Okay, good morning and welcome back, everybody. Today is Wednesday. We're continuing on in Chapter 4, Understanding Customers and Competitors. Before we get started, I just want to point out a few things. Um, these exercises that have been due, the entrepreneur exercise, and this doesn't pertain to everybody, just a few of you all. I've noticed that people are not turning their work in, and that's fine if that's how you want to go about your grade in the course. But I just want to let everyone know I looked yesterday at the assignments that have been turned in, and there's a good amount of people that have not been doing their work, and you will be receiving zeros on the assignments. But I just want to bring that to everyone's attention. It's still early in the semester, so I don't know what's going on with people not doing their work. But what I said in my syllabus stands. I do not accept late work, so ball's in your court. I suggest getting on the ball and getting your homework going if you want to pass the class or pass it with a decent grade. So with that being said, just make sure this entrepreneur exercise coming up is not due until next Sunday at 11:59 p.m. So I highly suggest everyone get that in if you want to get credit for it. Um, so that's all I have to say about that. I just want to point out that people are not doing their work, and it is going to cost you for not doing so. So I suggest you get busy. Um, so let's just pick back up where we were on chapter 4. We left off on Wednesday. We were talking about social cultural influences. We were talking about how we wanted to identify the influencing opinion leaders, and a lot of times the way entrepreneurs will actually do that is they'll let a sports figure or someone that's famous or select the media outlets and stuff of that source to try to reach those people, because a lot of times people will look up to athletes or musicians or artists or whatever they might be. So a lot of times they try to follow that trend and that fad. So let's move on next. Still dealing with social cultural influences. Next is word of mouth marketing. I think everyone has a pretty good idea of what word of mouth marketing is. Word of mouth is, in my opinion, one of the best forms of advertising you can have, because it comes from people that you know. So if someone like one of your good friends or family members come up to you and highly suggest an item or some type of service, then the chances are you're going to listen to them and hear what they have to say because you trust their opinion. So word of mouth can be a very powerful and inexpensive form of marketing. The expense of having good word of mouth marketing, in my opinion, is just really servicing the customer, doing what you're supposed to from the first place. If you fulfill the customer's needs and then follow up and do everything post sale or post service, then chances are you're going to get a good word of mouth from the customer. So word of mouth marketing, influencing people during conversations. So obviously you want to influence them onto whatever you're selling, and hopefully that they'll continue to trend and continue passing that message on to other people. It says it's the most powerful and authentic information source since it typically comes from friends or trusted confidence. We've already said that. So if it's coming from someone that we know or we trust, then chances are that we're gonna take that information and and you know and really it's going to mean more to us than from someone just a Joe Blow off the side of the street. Someone we have no clue who they are. Entrepreneurs often attempt to stimulate positive word of mouth marketing through influentials to create a buzz, also known as buzz marketing. So um, we can kind of think of that as the same way we just did with the sports figures or anything like that. How they try to get them to really push that brand out. You want to kind of do the same thing here, but just think of it as your friends and family members in this aspect instead of those sports figures or celebrities or whatever it is. Try to really create a buzz within people that in the communities that know people and can get the word of mouth out. Viral marketing. Obviously, as technology becomes more and more rapid in our society, a lot of marketing and a lot of business and everything is starting to be performed via the internet. So obviously, viral marketing is a thing to be concerned with as an entrepreneur. It's the electronic or online version of word of mouth marketing. So pretty much entrepreneurs are going to create messages and pass them along, and then hopefully the intent is that the people receiving the messages will find them interesting or useful and then forward them on to other recipients. And then that's just kind of like going viral across the web. So viral marketing is pretty much what that is. The name pretty much says it. It is an inexpensive way to get the message out about your company and products. What would be a way that an entrepreneur could engage in viral marketing? What would be a platform one could use?
Well, any of the social medias, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, like
Right.
we all know what it means when a video goes viral, something crazy happens and everyone retweets it. So it would be the same thing except in a business sense where you have an ad that is just really catchy or something and everyone shares it and all those people that see it share it again and again and again.
Right. So, like we said earlier, just really take advantage of all these social media platforms. I think social media is probably the strongest one out there. It just seems like everyone's on it nowadays, all the way from grandparents all the way to little kids that are old enough to even touch a smartphone. And I mean, hopefully they're on Facebook, but a lot of times I've heard of kids as young as 5, 6, 7 years old being on Facebook, which I think is a little extreme. But I guess it is what it is. I don't think they're even allowed to be on there, but the whole point is it's a lot of people are on that platform. So just really, entrepreneurs should really just take advantage of those platforms available to them. Now let's move on to some situational influences. The situational influences are going to be made up of a purchase task, your social surroundings, your physical surroundings, the temporal effects, and antecedent states. So these are the situational influences, and we're going to obviously get into them as we move along. So let's start with the purchase task, and this is pretty much the reason why the individual or the customer is even buying the product to begin with. And the book gives a good example. Is the customer buying it for themselves, or are they buying it for someone else as a gift? And a lot of times that could really determine on what type of product or service you're buying. A lot of times if you're buying for someone else, depending on who they might be, if it's your wife or a child or a brother or a mother or a grandfather or someone like that, then it might be still a pretty significant gift, and of something of great value, whether it be sentimental or a nominal amount. If it's for someone that just an acquaintance, then obviously it's probably not going to be that much of a value. It could be, but chances are it's probably not going to be as valuable of a purchase as it would be for someone that you really care about a lot. Same thing. A lot of times, if you're buying it for yourself, a lot of times you'll look at other aspects or other dimensions of the product or the service that you wouldn't have if it's for someone else, because you're going to be actually the one consuming the good or service. So you're a little more iffy or a little more I guess, suspicious or suspect of what you're buying if it's for yourself. So purchase tasks can come into a situational influence. I think everyone can see how that could come into play on what type of goods or services people are interested in purchasing. Their social surroundings obviously can play a big key in whether they purchase it or what they purchase. It says the people around when the customer is making the purchase. The book says women spend more when they're out shopping with other women than they do than if they're just by themselves. And I can totally probably see that. I know not every woman is a huge shopper. A lot of them do like to shop, whatever it is they like to shop for. But I can see if a group of women went into a store that they would probably be much more likely to buy a lot more than if they were just by themselves. Maybe if they were by themselves, they would just go in directly for an item that they know exactly what they want, buy, and leave. If they're in there with a group of people, then they could know what they want and be ready to buy it and leave. But then the couple of people they're with could still be looking around, which causes you to look around. Then it triggers a latent want, a latent desire, and then there you are buying other stuff. So it makes sense to why if you go with a group, there's just too many more variables that come into play. Like I said, just timing of the shop could even affect what you buy or how much you buy. So both social surroundings, purchase tasks, very important situational influences. Physical surrounding. It says the following can alter how purchase decisions are made. The decor, so how the place looks when you're in there, can have an effect. I know I've heard that just the color of a painting on a room can affect your attitude. So like if it's like a red color, it's supposed to get you more like alert or more like bring up your anger or stuff like that, is what I've heard. I don't know if it's true or not, but different colors can affect your mood in different ways. So obviously the decor in in a shopping place or on a website, how the website's built can obviously affect the way you navigate the site, or the way the store's decorated, the way the product placements within it affects the way the visual of your products, or the, whatever it might be, the art on the walls, product placement, design of a website. It all has an effect and a direct bearing on the customer's purchase habits. Music. So obviously, if you walk into a store and they have heavy metal blasting, I'm not a big fan of heavy metal. That's why I just use that as an example. I know a lot of people like it, but I know if myself personally, if I walked into a store and there was heavy metal blasting and you could barely hear yourself talk, I'm not going to stay very long. Chances are I'm not going to be very interested in what they were selling anyways, because I'm not really into that scene. But that's just my take on it. It's just my opinion. But if you go in a place that's nice and relaxing, something that you're into, so maybe you like jazz music. If you walk in somewhere and they're playing jazz music, then chances are you're gonna stay around just because you like the tunes, and then chances are you're gonna shop and might see something that catches your attention. So music can have a direct effect. The crowding in the retail area. So how big is the crowds? If it's a small crowd, obviously you can navigate the store, find what you want. Items probably aren't picked over. You can get to the register pretty quickly without waiting in line. So the chances are you're going to shop there. But if you go in during like a Black Friday, day after Thanksgiving, and you're trying to shop, chances are you might not want to stay in the store. I mean, people have even been killed, I believe, being stomped on in a line in Walmart trying to get into Black Friday, or ended up in severe condition at the hospital. So obviously the crowding in a retail area can have a big effect as well. Temporal effects. These is like the time of the day or time available. Obviously the time of the day can have an effect. If it's late at night, and some stores are open to like midnight, a lot of people, like older elderly people or a lot of younger people with curfews, obviously are not going to be able to go and shop and do stuff like that. If it's like a liquor store, like I know in Morgantown, the liquor store was open until midnight, which I thought was pretty cool back when I used to drink some liquor. Because around here, I believe it closed at 9 or 10, something like that. So it was cool that it stayed up until 12, up there. It's like, man, this is awesome. So the time really impacted it. And, you can go down there after 10 o'clock, because that's usually when I would get down there, usually later, and it'd be packed. You'd be like, man, all the revenue they'd be missing if they'd have closed at 9 or 10. So the time of the day has a big factor. The time available, if you're in a rush, you might just have time to run in and grab what you want, or you might not even have time to stop at all, And so obviously time of the day and time available is big factors. And then the antecedent states, the stuff like this, like the customer's mood or the amount of cash on hand can directly affect it. If the customer's really hungry and he's just hell bent on getting pizza. Okay, he's not having chicken, he's not eating steak, he wants pizza. Then his mood for whatever type of food, his desire for that food is going to affect his purchase habits. He's going to most likely not stop looking until he finds pizza, unless it's just not within the surrounding area and he has to travel too far, and then the opportunity cost is just too much to go and get it. Amount of cash on hand, obviously. If you want to go to a nice sit down, fun wine and dine restaurant and you only have $10 in your pocket, sounds like you're going to the Golden Arches instead of going to a Ruth Chris. So obviously the amount of cash on hand is going to affect what type of food or what type of product you can buy. Obviously the customer's mood as well. A little more on situational influences. The marketing mix influences can also affect the entrepreneur, or I'm sorry, the customer's purchasing habits. These factors are completely controlled by the entrepreneur, so that's nice to know that the entrepreneur can control the marketing mix influences. The marketing mix influences we're talking about relate to the 5 Ps of the product-based ventures, and then the 8 Ps of the service-based ventures. I can't list all of them right off the top of my head, but I think the 5 Ps is product, place, promotion, people, and price, I believe. And then the 8 Ps, the five are the same as that, but then there's 3 other that expands on with service, and I can't think of them off the top of my head. But I believe they're from chapter 1, if I'm not mistaken. But it's just important to know that the marketing mix influences do have a direct effect on the individual's purchasing habits, but it is within the realm of the control of the entrepreneur. So that's a nice thing there. It's important to construct an effective mix to influence the customer purchase behavior. Obviously, so if we want to make sure that the location is in a good location, the price is right, you have the right people in place, stuff of that sort. And obviously, everything I just said, they're just the three of those P's within either one of those. Obviously, that's just knowing what I just said, that is within the scope of the control of the entrepreneur. They can choose where they want to do business. They can, for the most part, choose what price they're gonna set for their products based upon what their suppliers relationship is with them, or what type of good or service they're selling. So it's just good to know that those are within the control of the entrepreneurs. So they do have some power there. Next is business customers. Some entrepreneurs decide not to compete in the B2C, which is the business to consumer segment of the industry, and prefer to operate in the B2B, business to business market instead. Um, Business customers include all the buyers in a nation, excluding the final customers. So obviously the final customer is what is B2C, right? So it's saying everything else by default is B2B. It says here business customers can be manufacturers. So if someone's manufacturing something, obviously they could be a business customer because they could be buying raw goods from another source. So obviously they could be a business customer because they're buying those raw goods to manufacture into a finished product. Retailers, obviously retailers are buying finished products and then marking them up. And that's being marked up to sell to the final customer. So that's going to be a business customer. And then government agencies also can be business customers, because think of like customers that have or say the city of Bluefield has their general fund, which is their main operational fund for government, and they buy like police sedan cars, like new police cars, and obviously they're going to have to buy them from a manufacturer somewhere, whether it be Toyota or Chevy or Ford, whatever they might be. But then they're going to use that to service the community, to do patrols, whether it be for the Drug and Task Force or for just speed tickets or whatever it might be, to service people. If they could also buy goods and services or to provide within their government, so they could also be business type customers. So I think the biggest difference here is if you're a business customer, you're buying to service to another customer. If you're an actual customer or consumer, you're buying for yourself, right? The buck stops with you. So what are some of the key differences and similarities in B2C and B2B? So let's start with the differences. Business customers use purchases for further production. Obviously, I think we just went through that on the last slide. Everyone, you're buying it to either build upon it or mark it up, or just to pass it on to the next person with hopes of making a profit, right? Products are often raw or unfinished. We know this because if you're a manufacturer, you're going to buy raw or unfinished goods to enter into the process of your working process to ultimately get your finished goods, right? Obviously, most people that are consumers are not buying raw goods or products, although some of them might, because they might be into building, like they might be a carpenter as a hobby. So some of them might buy raw wood and go home and create whatever they want with it, build cabinets or a table or something like that. But usually not the case. More specific buying or purchase criteria. The reason why I think it'd be more specific buying or purchase criteria is because they're usually buying in bulk. So they're really particularly concerned with the price and the quantity and the quality of the goods and services that they're actually buying, because they know that that's in the end going to be what creates their word of mouth, or it's going to have a direct effect on their successful venture, their venture being successful or unsuccessful. Demand is driven by the demand of the final B2C customer. So obviously, the business customers that are buying from these the raw goods sellers or whatever it might be, the goods or services to mark up. Obviously, that demand is triggered by default by the demand of the consumer, and which makes sense because they're not buying it to keep, right? They're buying it to pass on to the next person. So if the demand slows down for the consumer, say for pizza, then obviously Papa John's or Pizza Hut's not going to buy as much cheese or whatever ingredients go into making that pizza, because the demand's down for pizza on the consumer side. So there's a direct correlation between the demand from the business to consumer to business. Makes sense? Similarities, the purchase decision process. We went through that where there was like 5 steps, I believe. On first, you have to identify your problem, and then search out your options and your brands, and then ultimately it leads you to your purchase. So obviously, the purchase decision is a process is going to be the same. You still have to identify your problem and go through the whole channel. You can also skip different sets. You know, if you have a recurring brand you buy, like as a retailer, like if you really sell a lot of Nikes, then you're just going to buy a lot of Nikes, just rebuy them, right? So the purchase decision in that case, you could actually skip some steps. You already know what the problem is. You just need more Nikes, so you just skip the 3 in between steps and jump right to the purchase stage. So the purchase decision process is the same. The new buy, modified rebuy, and straight rebuy, they relate to the EPS, LPS, RPS. And let's just go back for just a second and look at here. It goes to the extended problem solving. Remember, this is from the consumers, the problem solving. High involvement purchasing for purchasing a new car or home, right? Remember that they're gonna really think a lot before they buy something like that. Limited problem solving, moderate involvement, choosing a restaurant for lunch, and this is for the consumer, right? Routine problem solving, like toothpaste and stuff like that. They just buy more Crest or Colgate, whatever it is. So the EPS, LPS, RPS. If we jump back up here again, we can see that it's just the same as it is for that of the businesses. If it's a new buy, say they're going to try a new supplier, and maybe they're going to try a new type of wood that just came out, and they're going to try to replace another product, then that's going to be one of the EPS type situations that we would see from a consumer, because they're going to put a lot of thought into really thinking about, you know, if they really want that new product or service, just like the consumer would be for buying a new house or a car, because it's something new and it's a big deal, because that could ultimately, you know, make or break the customer. Because a new car, obviously, what if they end up buying a new car and it's a lemon, and then the manufacturer doesn't want to back it, and then they're out all that money and they're still paying for a piece of crap car? Well, same thing. What if the manufacturer switches to a different supplier, and then they were spot on the first service, but then after that, you couldn't get in touch with them, or they were late on shipments, or the quality decreased? It could put you out of business. So it's a big decision. You're going to spend more time researching that decision. Modified rebuy, that's you're buying pretty much the same thing. Like maybe you're buying a door, but you're going to try new hinges this time. But the overall product's still the same. You just want to try a new hinge on it this time. So that'd be a modified rebuy, a little bit more. So that you can kind of relate that to like picking a restaurant if you're the consumer. Straight rebuy, that's like the consumer buying toothpaste. Walk into Walmart, you buy your Crest and leave, because you know that's what you use. Same thing, like with that manufacturer or the reseller that sells, the retailer, I mean, that sells Nikes. They ran out of Nikes, they're just rebuying some more. So that's just they just hop on and buy. You know, they just know what quantity they need, and bam, it's done. So it makes sense on the differences and the similarities. So business buying criteria, price. Obviously, price is going to be a huge thing. If businesses are buying, the suppliers, obviously, they need to be able to compete with price across other suppliers, because ultimately the price is going to affect what we set our selling price for, which is going to have a direct effect on our gross profit, which has the direct effect on being able to cover all the costs on bringing that good or service to market, right? Ability to meet quality specifications. So obviously, if we're buying to resell our goods or service, then we want to make sure that it's top quality, right? Because ultimately we want to have a better quality than our competitors. We want to outperform our competitors. So quality is very important here. Reliability of delivery. So if we place an order and we expect that order to get here on Friday at noon, then we want it here on Friday at noon, because we might have customers that are going to be in store at 12:30 ready to buy that product. And if we don't have that product, we could lose a customer not only that day but forever, because they could be like, oh, well, no, you guaranteed me you'd have this product and it's not here, so I'm going to go next door over here and buy it over here. And they had it So I'm just going to deal with them from now on because my time is valuable. So it's very important. So reliability of delivery. You don't want it to come too early either because you don't want to. What if you don't have room for it in your warehouse? They sent it 3 weeks early or 2 months early, and it was a back order that they said it wasn't going to be in, and just because they got it in, they sent it to you earlier, So just reliability of delivery. That's the timing is very important. Technical capability, that's important. Warranties and guarantees, obviously, how long are they going to guarantee their product or with the warranty? Um, Past performance on previous contracts, obviously that's going to be important. So if we have contracts with like a supplier of some raw goods or services, if we're a manufacturer, if they didn't perform well on a past contract that we had, let's say for an annual period, the chances are we're not gonna sign another contract with that supplier. We're gonna try to find another supplier. So obviously all these criteria are just as important as the other. Um, the key is to try to like just kind of give and take where you can with all of them and try to get the best deal on the overall picture. You want to get the best price product, but you don't want to let your quality go down the drain because you're so concerned with price. So there's a happy medium you want to try to find with a good quality with a decent price. So it's a give and take with each of these. One you might give a little more, one you might take a little more, some you might not at all. With reliability delivery, I wouldn't give on that. I mean, obviously there could be a little bit, stuff does happen, obviously, but if it's a recurring thing and it's always like, oh gosh, sorry, had another blowout on the interstate with our truck, just couldn't make it, then obviously that becomes an issue. But the main thing here to understand is that you got to give or take. You can't get your way on every single thing. But the best approach is to try to get it just the overall picture, the best scenario as you can. The buying center, obviously, the buying center is the group of people in a business organization who participate in the buying process, right? So we obviously know businesses are broken into different sectors. You have an accounting department, your IT department, your management department, your marketing, your whatever it might be. Different centers or different segments of the business. And obviously, you're going to have a buying center, right? You're going to have a servicing center. So obviously, the buying center is the group of people within an organization that has actually got the authority and the means to actually purchase goods or services from the outside. 5 roles in the buying center. There's users. So obviously the users are the people that are actually going to be using what they buy, right? There's influencers. These are the people that have authority to say, okay, you can buy this or you can't buy this. And people that obviously have the authority to say, well, okay, well, no, we're not going to buy this one, we're going to buy this one, okay? And the influencers we can see here kind of goes along with the deciders as well. They kind of have that final say, so they can both influence what the decision is going to be and decide, okay, this is what we're going to do, okay? Buyers, obviously, there's going to be buyers that are, once they're told to buy it, they get on the phone and make the purchase, try to get the best deal they can. And gatekeepers, obviously. Gatekeepers is are they going to allow people to buy the product or not? Is like, can they afford to buy the product from whatever the people supplying the product is? So that pretty much is just just same thing. Gatekeepers on entering into a market. So is there something that's keeping the people from buying that? Has another supplier said? I'm trying to explain what I mean by that. That's not a good way to put it. Gatekeepers, like say you're trying to get a new contract with a supplier for raw materials, raw goods. Okay, say there's a big player in the industry that's already connected to that supplier, and they tell that supplier, hey, if you do business with anyone else within this industry, I'm going to stop doing business with you and all. So obviously that supplier, chances are, if they've been doing business with this kingpin in the industry, then chances are there's a barrier to entry or there's a gatekeeper there that prevents you from tapping into that supplier, right? Because they've already got their business someone else. So that factors into it too. So sometimes within that center, sometimes you can get access to it, sometimes you can't. I know I kind of chopped that. Does that make sense though? The 5 roles in the buying center. Okay, a little more on the buying center. Entrepreneur must ask the following questions. Which individuals are in the buying center for the product or the service? What is the relevant influence of each member of the group? What are the buying criteria of each member? And how does each member of the group perceive our firm, our products and services, and our salespeople? Um, so why would the entrepreneur need to be concerned with these type of questions related to the buying center?
It's just going to give you all the information you need when you're purchasing your raw materials or whatever you have to buy.
Right. And also looking at it from the perspective if you're trying to get a company to buy your goods too, then kind of the same. If you look at it in that aspect, your aspect's totally right too. But if you look at the flip side of that coin too, from the other, the give or take side, you went one way, I'll go the other way with it. If we're trying to get a company to buy our goods or services, then reaching that buying center and learning their tendencies and who really has the authority and stuff is pretty much the same as trying to reach the customer, right? Because we're trying to make that company our customer, right? So we want to know the buying center's tendencies because that's the same as knowing the customer's buying tendencies. So it's kind of the same in that regards too. But it's the same goes the other way of trying to get someone to purchase, from outside of the company. So it's the same thing there. Makes sense there. So it's pretty much just knowing their tendencies, right? You just want to get to know who you're doing business with is pretty much long and short what it is. To successfully compete in the B2B market, you must understand the business customer's needs. Obviously, you need to know their needs. No different than knowing the consumer's needs. Get on the right bidders lists. Obviously, if you're not on the right bidders list for doing business with, because most businesses we know get a list of potential contractors or someone, and then they go through that list, and whoever has the best bid usually gets it, right? So you first want to make sure you're even on that bidders list, right? Or you're not going to have any chance of even getting that business's business. Find the right people in the buying center. We just said that. You want to get to know the buying center, so hopefully you can get it in with them and they'll start purchasing from you. And provide unique value to the business customer. Obviously, if you provide unique value to the business customer, they're going to repeat customer to you because you're in turn making their business better for their customer, right? So because you're giving them better product or service. So everyone's good on the buying center. I think it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty much the same thing as knowing the customer. You're just knowing your customer in a different aspect from a business perspective instead of from a consumer perspective. But it's pretty much the same thing. They have pretty much the same needs. Just we talked earlier, a micro level and a macro level. If you're selling to a consumer, at the end of the day, they have the same needs for the most part. There is some similarities and differences, like we said before, like what types or the quantities and stuff of that sort. But at the same time, it's pretty much the same thing, just on a larger scale and providing for that business. But like I said, do keep in mind there is some key differences. Obviously, we have to understand competition. Part of the chapter is understanding our competitors, so we need to understand our competition. It says our competition is any alternative that could satisfy a specific customer's needs. So anything. So if we're selling bottles of pop, any drink out there, water, pop, Kool-Aid, it doesn't matter. Even a water faucet is our competition, right? Because if someone's thirsty, they can walk by and just drink out the water fountain. Bam, thirst solved, right? Rivalry among providers for a given set of targeted customers. Obviously, if there's other providers that's trying to hit your same target market, that's our competition. There is no such thing as no competition. I know we said that in first chapter. Don't ever go to a bank and try to get a loan and say, hey, this is going to knock it out the park. But there is no competition whatsoever. So just know there's always competition. Even if you're creating a new market, there's always someone trying to penetrate that market that you're unaware of. And once you actually penetrate that new market, word of mouth gets out that it's out there, then they try to start duplicating it. And once say you have about a 2-year jump, I think, on any competitors from the time you actually create a new market before they start imitating your goods or services, I want to say, I believe it's 2 years. So know that the competition is there. Even if they're just getting started, they're going to be gaining very quickly. So no, competition is always there. We must understand the strengths, weaknesses, and competitive strategies of all of our competitors. Obviously, if we don't know their strengths and weaknesses, how can we outperform them or know where we could do something better where they're actually not doing it that well? So important to know that how they operate. Understanding competition. Competition continuum, total budget competition. generic competition, product competition, brand competition. So pretty much what these get into. So total budget competition. What this means is individuals have a budget just in general, right? And that budget is for food, shelter, clothes, extracurricular activities, you name it, it's for everything, right? So total budget competition means that you're competing, like say if you're only within an industry, you sell clothes, you're still competing with people that sell food and houses and cars because the consumers only have just one budget, right? And anytime that they make an expenditure or anytime that they incur a liability or buy something, then their budget decreases, which is less money they can spend on your product. So that's what total budget competition is. So you're always in competition because people have budgets that they have to stay within. Generic competition. Let's think of pharmaceutical companies. You could have a Loratab, or you can have your generic, whatever the generic is for pain medicine. You could have your Tylenol or whatever generic is for Tylenol. So, same with foods. You can have your brands, your Tyson or whatever for chicken, and then you might have like a Members Mark brand chicken or something, or a Kroger's brand, a special selection, whatever the brand is. So there's always a generic competition out there. Product competition. It might not be a generic product, but it might be the same product. Other companies sell the same product that you have, so there's going to be product competition. Same thing with brand competition. Nike's in competition with Reebok, is in competition with Under Armour, is with Adidas. So within different segments or different industries, there's going to be brand competition that kind of mock or resemble or just have parallels with the same type of products that they're selling. So the competition continuum, and everyone pretty solid on what those are. Okay, a little more on understanding the competition. Questions to ask about competitors. Who are the most direct competitors? What is the sales volume of each of the direct competitors? What market share does each of the competitors hold? What attracts customers to these competitors? What are the key strengths and weaknesses of the competitors? And how are the competitors positioned in the market? Checking out their advertising, promotion materials are going to help determine this. Why are all these things something we should be familiar with? Like, why would we be familiar or care about the sales volume of each of our direct competitors?
It's just one of the fundamental needs when you're running a business is to have a good competitive analysis. Because, like, just for their sales, you're going to want to meet their sales, or at least do as well, if you're going to want to have any chance of winning over the customer.
Right. And like for market share, that might be of relevance to the entrepreneur, because if you know how much market share a certain company or a certain individual holds, then you can also kind of know how powerful they are. Because if they're holding that market share, then chances are you're not going to be able to compete with them on price. So you need to go a different avenue. You need to go with quality or something to try to find out something they're not doing right and beat it. But chances are you're not going to be able to beat them on price. So knowing their market share is important, because if they have a lot of market share, chances are they're selling stuff pretty cheap. Or maybe they just have a superior product that they're charging more, whatever it might be. And then if that's the case, maybe you try to duplicate their product but beat their price, and steal their share. So all these obviously are just getting into understanding your competition, like we said, just knowing their strengths and weaknesses. These things right here is what's going to make up their strengths and weaknesses. So knowing what their market share is, then obviously we're going to be able to find out what strength they had that enabled them to get that, most likely. We might not be able to. It might take us a couple of years to figure out what they're doing. But that's this pretty much, it just helps you understand what your competition is. It just gives you some things to actually look for. To find information on your competition, read your competitors' annual reports, newsletters, etc. So you can go to, like, say if it's a publicly traded company, you can go to the SEC site and look at their annual 10K report that's in there. You can look at newsletters, etc. Periodicals or whatever they are, journals within industry, like journal industries and stuff like that. I think we talked a little bit about that in experiential entrepreneurship, of how to search out different segments or different news forms. Use competitive intelligence, gathering databases. Talk to suppliers and ask about what the competition does well and what it does poorly. So that's a good idea there. So if you have the same supplier as one of the bigger companies, then ask them. Never hurts to ask. A closed mouth doesn't get fed. So They might tell you, they might not, but it doesn't hurt to ask, you know. Do a thorough internet search. You'd be surprised what you can find on the internet nowadays. So if you really take the time and know how to search the internet, you can do so. Just make sure when you're searching the internet that it's from a relevant source or it's from a trusted source, because there's a lot of garbage out there too. So you don't want to get bogged down with junk that's irrelevant. So that's the main thing when doing a thorough internet search. Make sure the source is relevant. Um, Talk to some of your competitors' customers, find out if they're happy or unhappy, and if they might be happier doing business with you. So obviously, go directly to the customer. You know, and that's we know ways we can talk to a customer is one-on-one and in-depth interviews or focus groups, stuff of that sort. We talked on that in one of the first two chapters, I believe, the first maybe second chapter. So more on just understanding the competition, different ways. Talk to suppliers, competitors, internet, stuff of that sort. Um, the entrepreneur spotlight. I'm not going to get into that. I was going to maybe spend a little time or a few minutes reading on that today if we had time, but we're about out of time. So if you're interested in, it probably won't be anything off the test. There won't be anything off the test on the marketing spotlight, but it is on page 80 of the text if you're interested in it. So that's something you can do on your free time if you want. And then I believe that's it for the content right now. The next is the entrepreneur exercise, and please recall that this is due not this Sunday, but next Sunday, I believe. Let me make sure I'm telling you correctly. Yeah, next Sunday, February 23rd, 11:59 p.m. So just make sure you get on that entrepreneur exercise. So this wraps up chapter 4, the content. On Friday, we'll be having another lab day to work on these entrepreneur exercises and to continue working on our entrepreneur marketing plan that makes up 25% of our overall grade that will be due the week before finals week. So once again, that's all for chapter 4. If you have any questions or concerns, please come see me in my office or give me a call or shoot me an email. And remember, Friday, we will not be having a lecture in class. We'll be in the computer lab on the 3rd floor if you want to come and take advantage of working on the entrepreneur exercise or the entrepreneur marketing plan. So once again, that's it for chapter 4 with the lab on Friday, and we'll pick up chapter 5 on Monday. Everyone have a good day.